Hey, beautiful souls. If you're here because you're tired of being told to love and light your way through your darkness, if you're here because you've been shamed for your shadow, for your anger, for your fire, if you're here because you're learning that healing isn't always pretty and polite, and integration isn't instant, and sometimes the most sacred thing that you can do is say no, well, then you're in the right place. Before we dive in, I want to welcome you. Whether you've been here since the beginning or you just stumbled into this garden today, welcome. This is Issa Rose, Petals and Thorns. This is not just a channel, this is a sanctuary for the soul, a place where wings are weathered, thorns are sacred, and your becoming is the bloom. I'm Issa Rose Sophia, the sovereign soul storyteller, the integrated whole. With me are Jypze Jinx Nyx, the earth angel, the rebel light, who still believes in magic and is not afraid to play in the chaos. And Lucia Dantalion Lilith, the demonized one, the dark feminine flame, the protectress who holds the thorns when petals aren't enough. We are the triple goddess, the Trinity of self, maiden, mother, crone, creator, sustainer, destroyer. We are all three. What you'll find here isn't always polished. It isn't perfect, and that's the point. You'll get random moments, lip sync shorts, poetry, ritual storytelling, drops from Jypze Emporium, our Amazon storefront, because even goddesses gotta eat, and some of those links are affiliate, so we may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. We thank you for watering the garden. But mostly, here, you'll get truth. The kind that doesn't fit in a caption. The kind that needs space to breathe, to bleed, to bloom. Because we don't chase perfection here. We compost pain and pollinate purpose. We are shadow walkers, light wielders, and soul stitchers. This isn't just content. This is communion. On today's story, it's a heavy one. It's about love bombing disguised as spiritual connection, boundary testing disguised as care, and the moment I finally let Lucia speak or roar her truth, even when it wasn't nice. But here's what I've learned. Boundaries are not mean, they're honest. Thorns are not cruel, they're protection. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to stop testing the halo, or you'll see the horns. Get comfortable, because we're about to walk through the garden together. And yes, there will be thorns, but there will also be bloom. Welcome to Petals. Welcome to Thorns. Welcome here. This is from Halo and Horns, a boundary hygiene testimonial. Let's begin. This is going to be a different kind of video. No fancy editing, no B-roll, just me, my voice, and a story I need to tell. Not because I want to air anyone's dirty laundry, but because I want to hand you a map through a maze I wish I never entered, but here's the lesson of it. So here's the vibe. This isn't tea unless you want it to be. It's actually a little case study of how a few direct messages spun into months of love bombing vibes, boundary testing, public pressure, and a dramatic F this world, I'm out exit. But I'm not here to gossip. I'm here to talk about discernment and boundary hygiene. And look, if the person this is about won't call it love bombing, fine. But what it felt like on my side was feigned love powered by spiritual limerence. What you're about to get. By the end of this audio, you will know the 6 stages of how a spiritual connection became spiritual consumption. The 15 manipulation tactics I encountered, most of them unconscious. Some of them maybe not. Also, where I backpedaled, sent mixed signals, and fed the very fire I was trying to put out. the one direct rule and other tools you can use starting today. How to spot the difference between limerence and love, mirroring and meeting, connection and consumption. Content warning. We're going to talk about boundary violation, spiritual manipulation, trauma bonding, and emotional pressure tactics. We'll also talk about where I stumbled, because healing requires accountability, not just receipts. The ground rules for this space. We focus on behaviors and patterns, not diagnosing or demonizing people. We honor that most harm happens unconsciously, yet it still gets to be named. We also take equal responsibility for the loops we enable, while still holding others accountable for the tactics they're using. Why I'm sharing this? Because clearing the air is mercy, and owning my part does not excuse manipulation. But it helps us spot patterns faster and stop feeding loops. Naming limerence matters. It can feel like love while quietly eroding boundaries. Although I have over 400 screenshots and timestamps, all the receipts, truthfully, I've already spent more than enough time and energy on this encounter, and I just want to process it here together and move on. I'm choosing clarity over chaos. One more thing before we begin. For those new here, you need to understand how I move through the world. I am 3 in 1. Again, Jypze Jinx, Lucia Lilith, and Issa Rose Sophia. And at the time the story begins, I was still learning how to hold all 3 without fracturing. I was still learning that being a spiritual guide doesn't mean sacrificing my boundaries on the altar of being of service. You're about to hear all 3 of us throughout this story. Jypze will be the one who got excited, who fluttered her wings, who wanted to believe. Lucia will be the one who knew something was off from the jump. And Issa Rose, she's the one trying to hold them both, learning to integrate, learning to listen. Truths and roses have thorns about them. So, buckle up, grab some tea or something stronger. Let's walk through the garden and watch where you step. Stage 1, the opening. It started the way most spiritual connections do, with someone who seemed to speak my language. Late July, Instagram direct messages. He commented on my story saying I'm glowing, that he sees me, that I was shining, adding star emojis. Not the usual, hey beautiful, or shallow, let's collab energy. Something that felt elevated. I replied that I'm the daughter of Ra, and we were off. We started with small talk, but the spiritual kind. Within hours, we were talking Isis, Osiris, Gnostic philosophy, the pleroma, the monad, Abraxas, Sophia Christ, the demiurge, all the things I write about in my book, The Garden That Remembered the Stars. Link in the description, by the way. And here's the thing. He matched me, point for point, concept for concept. He knew the lingo. He agreed with everything. He said things like, I know exactly what you mean, and you get it. In a world where 85% of people are, let's be real, deaf, dumb, and blind to this level of knowledge, finding someone who speaks your cosmology feels like ethereal oxygen. But let me tell you what I didn't see yet. He was not just echoing. He was relating through trauma dumping disguised as wounded healer kinship. He shared his testimony, his wounds, his struggles, his rebirth story. And in real time, it felt like we were both forged in the same fire. Like finally, someone who's done the work. Jypze was fluttering. Oh yes, this is it. Someone who gets it. Someone I can share all this cosmic knowledge with. A member of our soul tribe. But here's what I missed. He was adding to the conversation, yes, but only to keep me engaged, to position himself as the student and me as this spiritual guide, to make me feel seen as the teacher I was stepping into being. And Issa Rose, I gaslighted my own intuition again. Lucia whispered, no, screamed actually. This feels like trauma bonding, not mentorship. This feels like he's making you his spiritual therapist. This is siphoning energy. I can smell it. But Issa Rose overrode her. Shh, Lucia, I'm a mentor. I'm a spiritual guide. This is what I'm here for. This is my calling. Don't ruin this. In truth, my platforms are just barely beginning to fully portray our identity beyond what might look like cosplay of the Trinity, Jypze, the playful chaos angel, Lucia, the demonized shadow, Issa Rose, learning to hold them together. And when he positioned himself as the perfect student, wounded but willing, seeking but humble, I took the bait. Because truth is, Issa Rose was hungry. Hungry to be seen as the teacher. Hungry to prove I could hold space for the broken and guide them to wholeness. Hungry to finally be the mentor I'd been becoming. And he sensed it. He sensed that hunger. And he fed it by making himself the perfect vessel for my gnosis. The tactic? This is called fast intimacy through sacred wounding plus spiritual mirroring. 1. First, charm opener. Compliments that flatter your essence. You're glowing. I see you. 2. Spiritual mentoring. Instant agreement with your worldview. You get it. I know exactly what you mean. 3. Testimony sharing. Vulnerability to build trust quickly and position you as the healer guide. 4. Early we framing. Wounded healers, our connection, our mission, our journey before trust exists. 5. Student positioning. You're teaching me. I'm learning from you. You're helping me further along. All of it designed to install a dynamic where Issa Rose pours, he receives. Where Issa Rose teaches, he consumes. Where my energy flows one way, into him. How it felt? Intoxicating. Electric. Like I'd been spiritually starving and someone finally put a feast in front of me. My crown chakra and my wings were vibrating. I was channeling spirit so deeply. I felt alive in a way I hadn't for a while. Jypze was dancing. Finally, someone who gets it. This is magic. Issa Rose thought, all right, finally, someone who sees me, not just as a woman, but as a vessel of the divine. The red flags I missed. A true spiritual friendship has reciprocity. Both people teach. Both people learn. Both people pour in to each other. But from the beginning, the energy was one-sided. Issa Rose taught, he received. Issa Rose channeled, he soaked it up. Issa Rose shared gnosis. He thanked me for it. Issa Rose poured resources. He consumed them. And when someone positions you as the sole source of their spiritual nourishment, that's not mentorship. That's siphoning. A mirror is not the same as a match. A mirror reflects. A match meets you halfway and brings their own flame. And here's the thing. He kept calling me his mirror. 3 separate times he said it directly. First, saying that he believes he's learning about a piece of himself through my mirror. Then, stating it felt like a mirror of some sort and reminded him to keep going. And then third, straight up saying, geesh, my mirror is real. Additionally, the implied mirror talk, such as we recognize ourselves in each other. He was using me as a mirror to see himself, not to know me, not to meet me, but to reflect back what he wanted to see about himself and what he wanted to see in general. He was a mirror, and Issa Rose mistook that reflection for resonance. Lucia knew better, though. She said, he's not connecting with you. He's connecting with what he sees of himself in you. That's actually narcissism, not kinship. The first boundary violation. Within the first conversation, while we were discussing deep spiritual topics, how the day we stop learning is the day we start dying, and how much we both shared a passion for learning, he replies, I bet you're really passionate and give amazing hugs. Lucia was furious. What the F? Random. Where did that come from? We're talking about gnosis and knowledge, and you're thinking and talking about hugging me? But Issa Rose brushed it off, and I carried on, and I kept teaching. That was the test balloon, and because I didn't pop it immediately, he learned. She'll let it slide. I can push further. The lesson. When someone introduces physical touch or romantic sexual undertones in a spiritual conversation, especially within the first 24 to 48 hours, that's not enthusiasm, that's an agenda. And if you don't address it immediately, you're teaching them that your boundaries are negotiable. What Issa Rose should have done, the moment he mentioned hugs, I should have said, let's keep this conversation spiritual and educational. I'm not interested in discussing physical touch. If he respected that, we could continue. If he pushed back or brought it up again, block, exit, done. But Issa Rose didn't, because I wanted the connection more than I wanted the boundary. And that choice, it opened the door for everything that came next. Stage 2, the escalation, the boundary test. So, we kept talking, and the spiritual depth continued. But so did something else, the boundary testing. Remember that first hug comment? Yeah, the one that Issa Rose brushed off? He brought it up again, and again, and again, and again. Let me walk you through it. After more deep spiritual talk, he said, if we were in the same room, it would be so natural that others would sense our magic. Lucia, here we go again with the if we were together talk. Shut it down. Issa Rose redirected politely. As children of God, our soul's energies shift the room on its own, and when two or more are present, it's even more magnificent and magnified. I brought it back to the spiritual. I thought that was clear. He agreed, and we moved on. Next mention. A few messages later, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if someday I give you a big, huge hug in 3D since we seem to have such a strong connection in 5D. Lucia screamed, I effing told you. Is this like the third time? He keeps circling back to hugging in the 3D. No matter how many times it gets redirected, this is definitely boundary testing. Issa Rose finally addresses it directly. You seem heavily focused on that and keep referencing it, yet the 3D is gone. There's only an echo left that we can still hear and feel for now until our new heaven and new earth. Soon, I was still being peaceful, still being gracious, and you know what he said? I get what you're saying, I think. I'm just saying I want my hug. Lucia's in my head like, who the F said you was getting a hug or even touching my temple? Even and especially after you dodged it and evaded this topic like 4 times. But Issa Rose still replied with grace. That's thinking in the physical, and I am spiritual. And then reiterating later and clarifying, I'm not just spiritual, I am spirit inhabiting an avatar in a human form. He kept hearting literally every single message I sent and replied, I'm definitely spiritual, but you get what I'm saying. Lucy is like, yeah, sure. All right, buddy. Then Issa Rose tried again. If and when that day arrives, it will happen naturally, like a river flows. There's no need to keep mentioning something that is not now in the gift of the present, especially when we're having so much fun dancing in the cosmos. And he agreed. He said, you make so much sense. That's true. Divine timing. Okay, good, right? He got it, right? No. Because even after all of that redirection, he proceeded to flatter me and overcompliment without taking any accountability or showing any emotional intelligence or respect around the fact that I was clearly uncomfortable with the continual talk about embracing in 3D, hugging, and even imposing a hug. And then came the sexual escalation. While we were having these deep spiritual conversations, he was the one who introduced sex into the dialogue. We were talking about how much we loved learning, and he replied how some people don't even understand that sex is magic and should be treated and respected as such. I stated how our people perish for a lack of knowledge, and I agreed with that statement because it's true. Sex is sacred. And I immediately set a boundary, stating that I've been celibate for over a year. And when anyone, mostly men, approaches me operating from lust and flesh, I want to put a COVID mask on because I can practically smell their parasites. Rose thought it was crystal clear. He hearted the comment and said, "Right, I know exactly what you mean." So I thought, okay, good. He gets it. Boundary set. Moving on. But then, days later, after I shared a vulnerable story about a past experience where I feel someone tried to siphon my sacral energy, he said, "I know how to make the universe shine brighter and keep it extremely happy and full of a flowing ocean. I aim to please." Y'all, Lucia was done. Who the F said I wanted you to please my yoni? What in our conversation made you think I'm interested in that? Where's the relevance in that in conversation? Especially, I just told you I'm celibate. I just told you I'm not interested in sexual relations. Rose typed back immediately, "I am not interested in sexual relations." He must have been typing as I was saying that, because his next message said that it's messed up that someone tried to play with me like that I'm supposed to be protected, not neglected, or taken advantage of, and "You're a rose, water it, and it'll bloom happily." Then he replied, "I know you're not interested in sexual relations. It gets in the way of things. We can be happy and close without that." Lucia's like, "So why'd you mention it at all? Just to test my reaction and then adjust accordingly? Yeah, this is textbook push and pull." The tactic? This is boundary testing through repetition and sexual push-pull. The repetition pattern. First, test a boundary. Mention hugs. 2, she redirects. 3, agree and back off. 4, wait a beat. 5, bring it up again. 6, repeat until she either enforces or breaks. The sexual push and pull. 1, first, make a sexual comment to test the waters. 2, then gauge the reaction. 3, if she recoils, backpedal immediately. "I didn't mean it like that. I know you're not interested." 4, keep the door cracked. The topic has now been introduced and normalized. 5, repeat. He brought up hugging in the 3D at least 5 times within 72 hours. He brought up sex as sacred to open the door, knowing how to please the universe after I clearly stated being celibate and not interested. That's not confusion. That's not enthusiasm. That's systematic boundary testing. He was saying how many times he could circle back to the same topic, physical touch and sex, before I completely shut it down or kept allowing it, seeing how far I would go. And here's my part. I didn't shut it down completely. I stayed polite. I stayed gracious. I didn't want to unleash Lucia Lilith, my shadow self, my protective part. I wanted to be the goddess, the messenger, the light. So I softened my no. And here's the part I need to own. When he said, maybe the universe will surprise us both, about us hugging in the 3D someday, I replied, "I love surprises." Now, let's be clear. Rose said that because I was trying to be polite. I was trying to redirect the conversation without being too harsh. And I was trying to keep the vibe peaceful and spiritual. This is what happens when you're too much in love and light. But what he heard was, She's open to it. She's not saying no. She loves surprises. So if I keep showing up, keep being persistent, keep talking about us, maybe she'll come around. Lucia was screaming, "You just gave him hope. You just told him maybe. You just taught him that if he keeps pushing, you're going to soften." And she was right. Because I stayed in the conversation. I kept teaching. I kept pouring. I kept replying with long theological messages, scriptures, resources. Jypze was still excited. Oh, he's just enthusiastic. He means well. And that, staying engaged after the boundary was tested multiple times, that was Issa Rose's backpedal, where Issa Rose gaslighted herself. Well, Lucia was screaming, "What the F, random? Why does he keep talking about hugging you? Why is he talking about pleasing a yoni? And we're having spiritual conversations, and this is weird. This is a boundary violation. Shut it down now." But Issa Rose told her, "Shh, be nice. Give him grace. He's just enthusiastic. He's just expressing connection. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. Don't be mean. Don't ruin this. You finally have someone who gets it." Issa Rose prioritized being the gracious, spiritual guide over listening to Lucia's protective instincts. Issa Rose told herself, "If I enforce this boundary too harshly, I'll lose this connection. I'll scare him off. I'll seem cold. I'll seem like I'm not really the loving, patient, spiritual mentor I claim to be." And that was a lie, and Issa Rose swallowed it whole. The lesson: when someone makes you repeat a boundary more than twice, especially around touch and sex, they're not confused. They're testing to see if you'll enforce it. And if you don't, what you're actually teaching them is persistence works. You're training them that your no is negotiable. Your boundaries are suggestions. Your discomfort can be overridden with charm, patience, and spiritual language. And here's the hardest part to admit. Issa Rose trained him, not because I wanted to, but because Issa Rose did not trust her no enough to let it stand without explanation, justification, or softening. What Issa Rose should have done. I should have said, "You've mentioned physical touch twice now. I've redirected both times. I'd like to keep this conversation spiritual and educational. And if that's not possible, we should end here." Block, no explanation, just exit. After another hug mention. Same with the sexual remarks. The moment he said, "I aim to please the universe," after I clearly stated sexual boundaries and emphasized that I'm celibate, Issa Rose should have said, "That comment was sexual. I'm not interested. If it happens again, this conversation is over." And if he did it again, block. But Issa Rose did not, because I was more afraid of jeopardizing this connection than I was of violating my own boundaries. And that choice set the stage for everything that came next. The lesson of stage 2: intent does not erase impact. If someone crosses a sexual boundary and you say no and they do it again, even in a spiritual frame, that's not confusion, that's testing. And your job is not to teach them why it's wrong. Your job is to exit and protect yourself. Stage 3, the spiral, the anxiety bait. So at this point, we're a few days in. We've been messaging constantly. Long, deep hours. Long exchanges about theology, trauma, mental health, music, food. It felt like we're building a friendship. But Issa Rose was also exhausted, channeling at that level, sharing gnosis, teaching, holding so much space. It was draining, especially when it's one-directional. Issa was pouring and he was receiving. We both addressed him as my student. He even called himself such. He said he loved learning from me, but he wasn't pouring anything back. He was pouring his need for validation, reassurance, and regulation onto Issa Rose. Lucia noticed, hey, he's siphoning you. He's using you as his spiritual and emotional battery. And you're giving, he's taking. This is not reciprocal. So one day, Issa Rose went quiet. Spent the day reading a book. Not really much on electronics. Not to ghosts. Didn't block. Just took a break. Resting. doing normal everyday things. Within 24 hours, I had 16 messages from him. Here's a few. Is everything okay? I hope I didn't do anything to rub you the wrong way, goddess. Don't feel like talking? I think I got ghosted. Darn. My anxiety is bad. I hope you're okay. I usually don't get like this, but I really, really, really connected with you. If there's something I said or did and you feel I'm no good for you, I respect your decision. The pattern? This is anxious pursuit, also called protest behavior. Reassurance barrages, multiple messages in a short window. Self-deprecation. I'm probably making a fool of myself if you feel I'm no good for you. To trigger empathy. Anxiety mentions. My anxiety is bad. To make you feel responsible for their regulation. Guilt-laced questions. Did I do something? To pull you back into caretaker mode. How it felt. Issa Rose felt responsible. Why should I feel like I'd done something wrong for taking space? Like I owed him some type of reassurance. And because Issa Rose is empathetic, because I've also been in dark places myself, I was watching him spiral. So I replied, and Jypze felt bad. He's hurting. Lucia was furious. You don't owe him shit. He's manipulating you with his anxiety and projecting his own insecurities. Don't even respond. But Issa Rose responded anyways. At almost 5 a.m., I wrote back. You were told that angels flutter in and out of people's lives every day. We belong to Yahweh Elohim. Therefore, the great I am is the only one I need to explain my decisions to. You should be studying, reading, and reflecting on all the materials I sent you anyways. Going within and building with the actual source of the energy that you felt between us. Issa Rose reminded him, you did not connect with me. You connected with the spirit that lives in me. And you know what he said? I apologize if I scared you away. That's what I was afraid of. Pause. Lucia was done. Where did you get scared away? That's not what you said. Nothing you stated was acknowledged, addressed, or even validated. He just put his own fear onto you and narrated a script you never wrote. That's gaslighting and could be a form of destiny swapping. The mistake? By replying, by soothing, by even explaining, Issa Rose trained him that panic yields responses. I rewarded the very behavior I wanted to stop. That's called intermittent reinforcement. And it's one of the most powerful conditioning tools there is. What Issa Rose should have done. Held the boundary, not replied. Or replied just once with, I needed space. That's not abandonment. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Then silence. Not punishment. Just holding my own space. The lesson. When someone's need for reassurance overrides your need for space, cleansing, and clearing, that's not connection. That's energetic and spiritual consumption. You are not a 24/7 helpline. You are not required to manage someone else's nervous system. And if silence from you causes someone to spiral that hard, they need a therapist, not a text back. Next stage. The block and return cycle. The hover. Okay, so after that anxiety spiral and Issa Rose's early AM boundary message, we settled into a new rhythm. Issa Rose told him, I'm pulling my energy back and pouring into myself and God. You need to do your own inner work. And he agreed. He said he understood and he thanked me for pushing him closer to God. But then the conversations kept going. We were still messaging. He was still replying to my Instagram stories. Issa Rose was still sending him YouTube videos, tarot readings, spiritual content. Lucia was growling. Why are you still here? You said you were going your way. How many times now? You're literally violating your own boundaries. Why? Because Issa Rose didn't enforce them. I said, I'm pulling my energy back, but then I kept pouring energy in. And here's the thing. For some unknown reason, even to myself, Issa Rose started sending him food pics, like pictures of meals that I made. We started talking about cooking, about heritage, even childhood memories. Lucia was in my head, livid. Why are you still here? You said you were going your way. How many times now? And she was right. The pattern, Issa Rose was violating my own boundaries. I said one thing, but my behavior said another. And of course he wasn't respecting the boundary because Issa Rose wasn't standing on it. So eventually, Lucia Lilith had enough. First time, August 1st. Issa Rose sent him a final message. You're getting too close to the flame. I'm done here. And Lucia blocked him on Instagram. Good boundary, right? Except he showed up on TikTok. And he was using my emoji signatures. And here's the thing. He'd been using my emoji signature since early on in conversations. The first time Issa Rose noticed it, I didn't think anything of it. Jypze thought it was sweet, like, aw, he likes my vibe. But Lucia noticed every time. August 1st, used it again. After unblocking in September, used it repeatedly. Then he posted it publicly on his own TikTok with my signature emojis in the caption. I even told my son how annoying and weird that was. Lucia was going crazy. He's literally stealing your energetic signature and using it publicly like you're already a we. That's identity colonization. But Issa Rose still didn't address it. Not firmly. Not until the very end. At first, when he appeared on TikTok, Lucia ignored it. But then, I don't know, Issa Rose felt bad and I didn't want to be a bitch. So Issa Rose sent him a few YouTube links. Jypze was like, maybe we can still be friends. Maybe it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And just like that, we were talking again. He said things like, you are so healing. I truly appreciate how you break it down, especially for me. And Issa Rose thought, all right, well, maybe we can be just friends. Maybe I was too harsh. Lucia was screaming, we blocked him for a reason, remember? The tactic. This is hovering. The tactic of staying in proximity through other platforms, through perceived patience, through I'm not going anywhere energy, until the person softens and reopens the door. And when Issa Rose unblocked without resetting terms, without stating new boundaries, I signaled that it works. How it felt? Well, part of Issa Rose thought that she was being too harsh. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe things will be different. It'll change. Maybe we can just establish a friendship and a spiritual soul tribe. But the truth is, maybe Issa Rose was a little lonely. Maybe I missed the stimulation. Maybe I didn't trust my own no enough to let it stand. Lucia knew better. You're not lonely, you're bored. And you're about to let this energy vampire back in because you'd rather have chaos than silence. Well, let's discuss where Issa Rose backpedaled again. After unblocking, Issa Rose started joking around, sending memes, sharing childhood photos, making sarcastic comments like, just admit you want to marry me. LMAO. Jypze was playful. It's just a joke. It's harmless. He even sent back a song called Wifey and said, if you'd have me, I'd have you. And y'all, Issa Rose said, you don't even know how bitchy and moody I am 99% of the time. Issa Rose was actually flirting while claiming to be uninterested. Even though my words said no, my behavior definitely said maybe. Lucia was absolutely done. So now you're sending mixed signals. Again, this is why he won't stop. You keep opening the door. You say you're closing. And in this kind of dynamic, maybe it's gasoline. The lesson in this stage, when you unlock closed doors without new terms, it's just a revolving one. And if you're going to give someone another chance, make them earn it with clarity. If we reconnect, here are the rules. Platonic only. No terms of endearments, no sexual remarks, no using my emoji signature in any way. Low frequency check-ins. Write it down, send it, and force it. Otherwise, you are just re-entering the same loop with a fresh coat of paint. Stage 5, the next stage, the final straw, the public pressure and catastrophe exit. So, we're now in late September. My birthday had just passed. He'd been supportive, kind of. He'd sent me sweet messages all day, but no gift. So much for surprises. No card, just DMs. Lucia noticed. Hasn't he been asking about your birthday since summer? And here it is, and nothing? Boy, bye. And when my producer friend publicly reposted my photo on my story to celebrate my birthday, then after talking all day, he tried to do the same. Issa Rose called him out. Delete it. Thanks, but no. You only are posting me after you saw someone else do it. That's actually kind of weird. He made excuses, a lot of them. And Issa Rose just was tired. Tired of having to police every little boundary. Tired of the over-complimenting, which at this point had lost all sincerity. Tired of the my loves and babes and my babies that I never consented to. Lucia had been saying this for weeks and going on months. He's not respecting you. He's performing care to keep you engaged. This isn't love. It's a form of management. And Issa Rose said clearly, I think you like me more than a friend and think we're here for some union or something. And I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in dating. I'm currently in a relationship with God, and that's it. I said I didn't want his love bombing. He said, I'm not a love bomber. My ex did that to me. I'm just showing appreciation. Pause. Lucia here. You know what? I don't care what you call it. I care what it felt like. And what it feels like is pressure disguised as praise. I told him, well, appreciate God. Put the focus on spirit, not me. I'm just the clay forged in the hand. And come on, how many times had basically Issa Rose said that by now? Like at least 10, 15. But he kept centering me. Even after I told him to not idolize or keep flattering me. Regardless of his justifications and excuses, Lucia was counting. This was like the 14th time you've redirected him to God, and he's not listening because he doesn't want to. So Issa Rose set another boundary. Get to know me without trying to union. I'm my own twin. And that's when he unraveled. He sent a long trauma dump about his past, how everyone abandoned him, how people call him crazy, how his ex still stalks him, how he gets excited when he meets someone real. Then, pardon me if I come off like I'm doing too much, I just appreciate those who see me for who I truly am. Issa Rose said, you really think it's a union because I'm a girl. If I weren't, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. He denied it. Lucia Lilith rolled her eyes. Liar. And then, a couple days later, he makes a comment, I will forever cheer you on. I have your back, and in due time, it will tell. There's no pressure over here, just water and sunlight for the flowers to grow. It was a beautiful message, but somehow was also a refusal to hear my no. Lucia was seething. Okay, so if there's no pressure, why do you feel so much pressure then? The pattern? This is boundary overriding disguised as care and concern. He's saying all the right things, supportive, patient, talking about no pressure, while ignoring the actual content of what Issa Rose is asking for. More space, some distance, and platonic spiritual energy only. How it felt. Honestly exhausting. Like Issa Rose was talking to a wall. Like no matter how clearly I stated my needs, he heard what he wanted to hear. Jypze was confused, but he's just being sweet, isn't he? Lucia was clear. No, he's being manipulative, and there's a difference. What Issa Rose did, finally. I went quiet again. After 3 straight days of him sending check-ins. Hi, just wanted to say hello and make sure you were okay. Lucia blocked him again, second time, October 1st. And this time, Lucia meant it. You know why? Because he moved platforms again. After being blocked on Instagram the second time, he showed up on TikTok using my emoji signature again. Lucia was furious. This man will not stop. He's platform hopping like a virus. So Lucia finally messaged him directly on TikTok. So curious, why do you keep using my emoji signatures? I even noticed it on one of your posts. And he sent a long response about how he didn't mean any disrespect, how he just liked it, and how he wants to be a safe space for me. And then he said, I'd be just afraid of getting to know people too. Lucia was done. No, stop your projecting. Issa Rose is not afraid to get to know people. She's just starting to have a shorter tolerance for people who don't respect her boundaries. So, this was the final block. Then, on YouTube, after blocking him twice on Instagram and now on TikTok, he shows up under our YouTube video comments. He commented publicly, I'm not much, but you have me. You keep fighting, baby girl. I'm so proud of you. You are so very loved. Every part of you is incredible. And this is where Lucia Lilith finally unleashed her full righteous rage. Issa Rose responded with a firm but measured boundaries, addressing the I'm not much comment, which is really just surface level support, and the fact that he barely even knows me. This then spirals in the replies of almost 40 comments. Let me give you the pattern. Defense. I'm solid. It's not surface level. Jade baiting. Justify. Argue. Defend. Explain. Something isn't right. How? I don't understand. Educate me. Darvo. You're being cold. Why are you being mean? Victim posture. Oh, you're tearing me down. All I've ever shown was care. Why are you kicking my behind? Moral badging. I've always been deep. I'm a stand-up person. I keep people's secrets. Catastrophe exit. Fine, I give up. This world is cooked. At this place, I'm out. And that's when Lucia had enough. Issa Rose posted one final comment, a full breakdown of every manipulation tactic he used just in his one last comment, stating, I'm listening to you, followed by, I just don't agree because I know myself, is not listening. It's overriding. You're asking me to doubt my experience in favor of your self-story? That's gaslighting. Lucia listed them all. The impact over intent override. Jade baiting. Again, justify, argue, defend, explain. Sea lioning. Relentless demands to re-explain even after a boundary was set. Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Martyr, pity bid. Fog. Produce fear, obligation, or guilt. Virtue badging, reputation laundering. Scope shift, it's about my character. Learned, helplessness, script. There's nothing I can do. Channel shift pressure. I just wish I could talk to you. Double bind, pre-invalidation. You probably won't believe the sincerity in my voice anyways. Projection, calling my boundary, kicking your behind. Acceptance mirage. I accept it while still arguing and pursuing. Minimizing via openness. I've only been real and honest, fully open. Oversharing is not connection. Lucia ended with this. For the last 2 days, I've been preparing a full case study and I will not litigate this in the comments anymore. Final boundary. Do not reply here or contact me on any platform. Further attempts will be removed and documented. His response? He deleted the entire thread. Lucia was vindicated. There. That's all the proof you need. When someone deletes evidence of their own behavior after being called out, well, now they know what they did. The lesson. When someone keeps reappearing after you've blocked them, they're not showing devotion. They're not showing consideration. They're showing a persistence problem. And when they take the dynamic into the public eye, commenting under your videos, using the audience pressure to box you in, that's not support. That's control. And you don't owe them another explanation. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a chance to fix it. You just owe yourself peace. Stage 6, the aftermath. So, that's the story, or at least the arc of it. Now let's talk about what Issa Rose, Lucia, and Jypze learned. What Issa Rose learned about him, I don't think he set out to manipulate me. I really don't. I think he was deeply wounded, operating from an anxious attachment style and using my energy to regulate his own nervous system. He wasn't trying to be some self-proclaimed villain. He was trying to survive, and in his survival mode, he consumed me. That doesn't make it okay, but it does make it unconscious for him. And that's important because it means most of these tactics are not calculated, they're conditioned. People who love bomb or experience limerence often don't know they're doing it. People who boundary test aren't thinking, let me see how many times I can bring up hugs before she shuts me down. They might be thinking, I just really want a hug. But impact matters more than intent. What Lucia learned about Issa Rose. Lucia knew from day one what Issa Rose took months to accept and enforce. Issa Rose has a pattern. I overgive, I overexplain, and I overstay. I soften my no to avoid seeming mean. I teach instead of enforce. I give second, third, and too many more chances to people who haven't really earned it or respected him or made me feel that they valued him. Genuinely. And I gaslight my own intuition. In this case was Lucia, my shadow, in the name of being gracious. Lucia was screaming from day one, run. And Issa Rose said, shh, be nice. Give him grace. That was Issa Rose's mistake that she makes too often, to be honest. Not his behavior. Issa Rose's override of my own knowing was my biggest mistake. Lucia was right. And my intuition is always right when it comes to protection. What Jypze learned about hope. Jypze wants to believe. She always does. That's her nature. Playful, hopeful, seeing the best in people. But Jypze learned hope without boundaries is just wishful thinking that can become dangerous. You can believe in someone's potential and still protect yourself from their present behavior. Jypze does not have to dim her light or stop being playful. She just has to let Lucia hold the door more often. What are we all doing differently now as the integrated Trinity? Issa Rose created the one redirect rule. State the boundary once. If it's crossed again, Lucia exits. No explanation. No teaching. No redirections. Issa Rose is practicing saying no without an elaborate footnote or any at all. No dissertations. No scripture. No. Here's why. Just no. And Issa Rose is trusting Lucia when she says someone's getting too close to the flame. I'm listening because she's not mean. She's protective. And protection is not optional anymore. Jypze is learning that her playfulness does not have to come at the expense of safety, and she can be joyful with boundaries. Lucia is no longer being silenced, and when she growls, Issa Rose listens. And when she blocks, they stay blocked. And together, Jypze, Lucia, and Issa Rose, we are learning to move as one. What I want you to take from this, if you are in a dynamic like this right now, where someone is spiritualizing their way past your boundaries, where I see you ends up feeling more like consumption than connection, where you're exhausted from teaching someone how to respect you, listen to your inner Lucia. Listen to your shadow. Listen to the part of you that's growling. That part is not broken. That part is not tripping. That part is not crazy. That part is paying attention. And your job is not to be gracious at your own expense. Your job is to be whole. Your job is to be sovereign. Okay, that's the story. Now, let's talk about the patterns, because that's what you're really here for. Part 2, the pattern library. All right, so now that you've heard the emotional arc, let's break down the 15 core manipulation patterns that I encountered. I'm going to teach you what they are, why they work, and how to spot them. And I'm going to use composite examples, not from my story specifically, but from common dynamics, so you can recognize these patterns if you ever see them too. Lucia wants you to know, once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. And that's the point. Ready? Let's go. Pattern 1, fast intimacy setup, the 72-hour bond. What it looks like: deep spiritual or emotional conversations within hours of meeting. Statements like, I feel like I've known you forever. Next, sharing trauma or vulnerable stories very quickly. Next, moving from casual chatting to soul connection talk in one sitting. Why this works: it creates a false sense of closeness that skips over trust building. It could be a sign of poor emotional regulation or a need to have a stronger support system. Your nervous system thinks, if we're talking about this level of stuff, we must be close. But intimacy without time becomes intensity, not connection. Lucia says, if someone's downloading their entire life story in the first 48 hours, they're not connecting, they're hooking. Real intimacy and connection takes time. The red flag: when someone seems to match your depth immediately and perfectly, however, without ever offering anything that really challenges or expands you, they might be mirroring, not meeting. How to respond: I appreciate the depth, but I'd like to build trust slowly. Let's pace this. If they push back or speed up, there's your answer. Pattern 2, spiritual mirroring, the echo chamber. What it looks like: they know all the same concepts you do. They agree with everything you say. They use your language, your references, your cosmology. There doesn't seem to be any friction, no differences, no growth edge. Why it works: because when you've been spiritually isolated, when most people think you're weird or you're too much or you're the black sheep, finding someone who speaks your language feels like finding your tribe when you're the misfit. Jypze says, it feels so good to finally be understood, but wait, do they actually get it? Or are they just repeating it back? The red flag: a true spiritual friend will challenge you. They'll offer a different perspective. They'll maturely be able to say, I see it this way. What do you think? Mirroring is flattery. Meeting can cause friction. How to respond: meeting can cause friction, and that's okay, because that's how we grow. How to respond: test it. Share something you're uncertain about or something controversial in your belief system. See if they echo you back. Yes, exactly. Yes, man, yes, girl type vibes. Or engage with nuance. Interesting. I wonder if it could also mean, if it's all and only echoing with no real substance in return, you gotta exit. Pattern 3, early we framing, creating a manufactured bond. What it looks like: we're so similar. We have a special connection. Oh, if we were together or when we meet, and us language before there's even actually any type of us. Why it works. It installs a shared identity before you've consented to one. Your brain starts thinking in terms of we without realizing you never agreed to that framework. Lucia says, if someone's talking about our journey or our mission within the first few days or even weeks, you should feel very uncomfortable. And you feel very uncomfortable but don't know why. That's your internal system saying, wait, I didn't sign up for this. The red flag. We language shows up before trust has been built. How to respond. I'm enjoying our conversation, but let's not use the we language, as you and I are just still getting to know each other. If they push back or keep doing it, that's another boundary test. Pattern 4, love bombing and praise flood. Even if it's limerence, feigned love. What it looks like. Constant, excessive, idolizing compliments. You're incredible. You're a goddess, a gift from heaven. Praising you for things that aren't extraordinary, like responding to a message and feeling like they're putting you on a pedestal. Why it works? Because a lot of us are actually, truthfully, to be frank, very starved for genuine appreciation and affection. So when someone floods us with praise, we feel finally like we're being seen and safe. But love bombing is not about you. It's creating some type of energetical debt. Issa Rose says, there's a difference between genuine, authentic, sincere appreciation and manipulation. One is specified and grounded, the other is generic and inflated. The difference between genuine appreciation and love bombing. Genuine appreciation is specific and grounded versus love bombing, generic and inflated. Genuine appreciation is occasional and earned. Love bombing is constant and over-exaggerated. Genuine appreciation celebrates your actions and accomplishments. Love bombing celebrates your essence, which they don't even actually know yet. Genuine appreciation, no strings attached. Love bombing comes with this sort of unspoken IOUs. This is how to respond. I appreciate your kind words, but this feels intense. Let's slow it down and calm it down. If they can't, that's your sign. All right, pattern 5, boundary testing repetition loops. What it looks like. You set a boundary. They claim they acknowledge it, but then they do the thing again. Or maybe in a subtly different way. A slight shift. Then you reset the boundary. They acknowledge it, but it continues again. Why does this work? Because each individual violation at first seems small, and if you call it out every time, you start looking and feeling like the problem. Lucia says, a boundary respected once is a courtesy. A boundary repeated is a test. If you have to say no to the same thing more than twice, the person is not confused. They're just hoping you'll give in. How to respond? Use the one redirect rule. First time. Please don't do that. Here is my boundary, and then state it clearly. Second time. I've already stated this boundary once. If it happens again, we're done. If there's a third time, you block with no explanation and exit immediately. Pattern 6. Sexual push and pull. The just kidding unless dynamic. This is what it looks like. Sexual or even suggestive comments. You object or pull back. They immediately backpedal, like, I didn't mean it like that, and we don't need that. No pressure. No rush. But the topic has been introduced and normalized. Later, they try to test the boundary again. Why it works? Because the backpedal makes you feel like you overreacted. You think, did I misread them? They said we agree. We don't need that. If I keep objecting, am I making this weird? Lucia says, if someone didn't mean it that way, then really, why bring it up at all? Why mention it? Why say anything? And if they know you're not interested, why does it keep happening? How to respond? Those comments seem sexual and I'm not interested. If that happens again, we're done. Not angrily, not explaining, just set a boundary and consequences. Pattern 7. Anxious pursuit, protest behavior, and reassurance barrage. What it looks like. Multiple check-ins in a short time, when you go accelerating, when you go quiet. Are you okay? Did I do something? I think I got ghosted. Mentions of anxiety or feeling panic to make you feel responsible of their emotional dysregulation. And then the self-deprecation. I'm probably making a fool of myself. If I'm not good enough for you, I understand. To trigger empathy and sympathy. Why it works? Because you feel like watching someone spiral is your fault when it's not. Issa Rose says, when someone's need for reassurance overrides your need for space, that is not connection, that's consumption. How to respond? Hold the boundary. Reply once, maybe. I needed space to cleanse and to clear. That's not abandonment. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Then silence, not as a punishment. And to keep messaging, block. What's next? Pattern 8, jade baiting, the educate me trap. What it looks like. After you set a boundary, they ask, how did I manipulate you? Educate me. What did I say that was wrong? How can I fix this? Where did I gaslight you? Show me why it works. Because if you're in this teacher role, healer or fixer, your instinct is to help them understand. But here's the truth. If someone has already repeatedly crossed boundaries and then asks you to explain why, that's a problem. They're not confused. They are stalling. Lucia says, let's be clear. JADE stands for justify, argue, defend, explain. And when someone asks you to do any of those things after your boundary, they're trying to drag you into a debate. How to respond? I've explained this twice. I'm not going to explain again. The boundary stands. Then stop engaging. Pattern 9. What is DARVO? Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. What it looks like. Deny. I'm not manipulating. I've only ever shown care and kindness. Attack. You just don't think you're worthy of care. That's your trauma talking. Reverse victim and offender. I told my mom I finally had a friend. You're tearing me down. I'll be fine. I always am. Why it works? Because it shifts the script. Suddenly, you're the bad guy for setting a boundary. You're the one causing harm. You're the one who needs to apologize. If you're someone who struggles with guilt, self-doubt, or people-pleasing, you'll fold. Lucia says, when someone responds to your boundary by making themselves the victim, that's the confirmation you needed. A person who respects boundaries doesn't argue with them. They adjust. How to respond? I'm naming behaviors, not attacking your character. The boundary stands. Then disengage. Don't get pulled back into the debate. Pattern 10. Spiritual bypassing, weaponizing oneness. What it looks like. We're one in spirit. God brought us together. This is divine reunion. I'm just honoring the connection. Why it works. Because if you're deeply spiritual, you want to believe in divine timing, soul contracts, and sacred connections. So when someone frames their pursuit as spirit-led, it's hard to say no without feeling like you're rejecting something sacred, something holy. Issa Rose said, spiritual language does not make someone safe. In fact, The people who use God and oneness to justify their behavior are often the ones you need to run from the fastest. How to respond. God also gave me discernment, and my discernment says we need space. Or simply, spiritual does not mean martyr and boundaryless. If they keep spiritualizing it, exit. Pattern 11, hovering, the persistent loop, what it looks like. After you block them, they find you on another platform, messaging you, making comments. It looks like, I'm patient, I'll wait, I'm not going anywhere. Maybe down the line we could be friends. I'll prove it. Recontacting across multiple channels until you soften. Why it works? Because it banks on the idea that persistence equals devotion. And if you're lonely, tired, or second guessing yourself, that persistence can feel like care. Lucia says, when blocks don't hold, that's not devotion. It's a persistence problem. So how do we respond? Block on every platform. Document the contact and report if necessary. And if you're tempted to unblock, write down 3 specific boundary violations first. Read them. And ask yourself, do you think anything will actually change? If the answer is no, just stay blocked. Pattern 12. Identity bleed. Emotional signature theft. Signature theft. What it looks like. They start using your phrases, emojis, or aesthetics. They adapt your cadence, your spiritual language, your vibe. They use your signature publicly in captions, posts, comments to signal connection. Why it works? Because it feels like flattery at first. They say imitation is the highest form, right? But no, over time, it starts to feel like theft. Like they're trying to become you, or at least signal to the world that you're already a we. When someone copies your markers, that's boundary violation plus identity colonization. How to respond. That's my emoji signature. Please don't use it. If they do it again, I've asked you once. If it happens again, we're done. Then enforce. Pattern 13, the catastrophe exit. Emotional blackmail. What it looks like. After you set a boundary, they say, fine, I give up. The world is cooked. I'm out. I'm done here. F this place. Often with despair language that hints at self-harm or giving up on life. Why it works? Because you're empathetic. You'll panic. You'll think, what if they hurt themselves? What if I pushed it too far? Maybe I should apologize and just smooth it over. Lucia says, a boundary is not a trigger, and someone's despair is not your debt. If someone threatens to give up when you set a limit, that's not love, that's leverage. How to respond? Don't engage. Do not reply. Do not soothe. Do not chase. If you're genuinely concerned about their safety, you can suggest a crisis line, report the concerning messages to the platform, encourage them to connect with a trusted person in their life. But do not re-engage with them directly. Your boundary stays. Their choices are ultimately theirs. And especially, we had both shared on World Suicide Prevention Day on a post that I have on my Instagram. We both privately shared our own testimonies of losing loved ones due to that type of situation. So to now turn around at the end of this encounter and make comments like that is a very harmful and hurtful form of manipulation to hook you back in. Pattern 14, public pressure, audience enlistment. What it looks like. Tender comments under your public post or video, public declarations of support, admiration, or connection, virtue signaling language, I'm loyal, authentic, stand up, to box you in. Why it works? Because when someone praises you publicly, not responding or responding in a way that doesn't receive it looks cold. And if you do respond, you're validating this dynamic in front of an audience. It's a no-win, and that's the point. So Lucia says, when someone takes a private dynamic public, especially after you've set boundaries privately, They're trying to use social pressure to keep you engaged. How to respond? Ignore it, or just simply respond once, publicly with a boundary. Thanks for the support. Please keep all comments platonic and educational going forward. If it continues, delete, block, or report. You don't owe anyone even a public connection that they're trying to manufacture. Pattern 15. Intermittent reinforcement. The hope cycle. What it looks like. Affection, then pressure, to apology. More affection, more pressure, another apology. Love songs after tension. Sweet messages after boundary violations. Just enough good to make you think it's getting better. It's the typical cycle of abuse. Why it works? Because this type of reinforcement is the most addictive pattern in psychology. It's like how slot machines work. It's how trauma bonds form. You never know when the good is coming. Maybe you keep hoping, you keep trying, you keep staying. Jypze says, it's like sometimes it's so good. Maybe it'll be good again if I just wait. If I just be nice. Lucia says, if a dynamic feels like a slot machine, sometimes it barely pays out, sometimes it doesn't. But you can't stop pulling the lever. That's not love. That's conditioning. How to respond? Notice the pattern, name it, and then exit. Write down the cycle. The good moment, then the boundary violation. What was the apology? What was the next good moment? Was there another boundary violation? Once you see it written out, you can't deny it. Then you leave. That's the pattern library. 15 tactics. Most of them unconscious. Some of them not. Now, let's talk about my side. Because it's not enough to just name what happened and what someone else did. Issa Rose has to own what I did too. Part 3. The full accountability mirror. Alright, so here are all the parts where Issa Rose stopped pointing at him and starts pointing at me. Because here's the truth. Both things can be true. He used manipulative tactics, whether intentionally or not. Issa Rose backpedaled, sent mixed signals, and prolonged the dynamic with my own inconsistencies. Owning my part did not excuse his behavior, but it does explain the escalation loop. So let's get to it. Issa Rose kept the channel open after the first boundary violation. The first time he mentioned hugging me, Issa Rose should have said, you keep mentioning physical touch. This conversation is to stay spiritual and educational. And that's it. And if he did it again, Issa Rose should have exited. But Issa Rose didn't. I stayed polite. I stayed gracious. I kept replying. It doesn't matter if it was long theological messages, scriptures, or resources. While Lucia was screaming, he just crossed the line and you're still talking to him. You need to block him. Issa Rose kept overriding her. Why this matters? Because overall, Issa Rose just trained him that he could cross the line and keep my attention. My words said redirect, but my behavior consistently said I'm still here. Maybe he just needs one more explanation. Maybe he'll get it this time. Lucia knew better. All you're doing is teaching him that this persistence is working, and every time you explain instead of exit, you are just rewarding the boundary violation. Remember, the one that redirect rule. State the boundary once. If it's crossed, exit. No redirection, no teaching moments. Then Issa Rose sent mixed signals. Issa Rose said, I'm celibate. I'm not interested in sexual relations. I'm in a relationship with God, the bride of Christ. But then Issa Rose also said, I love surprises. Maybe one day we can dance the night away. After blocking him the first time, she said, just admit you want to marry me. LMAO. Sarcastic, but unfortunately it was flirty. Jypze sent him food pics, childhood photos, playful gifts. Lucia was furious. All these mixed signals. While your words say no, your behaviors say maybe. And in the language of manipulation, whether conscious or not, maybe is a yes. That just needs a little more time. Why it mattered? Because even though words can say no, behavior can say maybe. So, what I'll do differently: no flirty jokes, no personal photos, no maybe some days. Once Issa Rose has stated a platonic boundary, if I say I'm not interested, my entire energy needs to reflect that, not just my words. Lucia's rule now: if your words and your actions don't match, the other person will believe your actions, so make them match. Issa Rose unblocked without new terms. What Issa Rose did: blocked him on Instagram, good, but then unblocked him, bad. Why? Because I did not reset any terms. I didn't say, if we reconnect, it's platonic only. No terms of endearment, no sexual remarks, no future faking, no us, no we's. Issa Rose just unblocked. Because Issa Rose did not set a new contract, he assumed the old dynamic was still on the table. What I'll do differently: block equals stay blocked. And if Issa Rose does unblock, I send one message with the new terms in writing before any conversation resumes. And honestly, probably still stay blocked. Lucia's rule now: a block without reinforcement is just a timeout. If you're going to unblock, make them earn it with a new contract that gets honored. Otherwise, you're just hitting replay on the same loop. Issa Rose over-explained way too much instead of enforcing. Lucia was exhausted. You're not his spiritual therapist. You're really not his teacher. You're not his spiritual guide. Stop explaining and start enforcing, because it's not being respected. Why this mattered: because explaining is not enforcing. And every time you over-explain instead of exiting, I taught him, she'll negotiate, she'll teach, she'll stay. Remember, no does not need a footnote. Explain: I've stated this boundary, I'm done. Block. No is a complete sentence. It does not need a dissertation. Issa Rose ignored small breaches. He used pet names: my love, babe, my baby. He sent love songs. Issa Rose ignored them instead of naming the boundary. He copied my emoji signature from early on and used it repeatedly, even publicly, on his own post. Even though I noticed, I didn't shut it down right away. Lucia was keeping count. First pet name, ignored it. Another pet name, ignored it again. More pet names, still ignoring it. First time he used your signature in private messages, you thought it was sweet. Second time you noticed but said nothing. And finally, by the time you said something, he'd been doing it for months, already posted it on his public platform. And of course, he thinks it's okay now and didn't mean any disrespect by it. This matters because small violations left unaddressed become normalized and usually become bigger ones. When you finally address them later, the person says, but I've been doing this for weeks and months, and even maybe potentially longer sometimes. Why is this a problem now? What I'll do differently: name it immediately, in real time, every time. The first pet name, don't call me that. First love song, don't send me romantic content. First signature theft, that's my emoji signature. Please don't use it. Then enforce. Rule now. Lucia's rule now: small violations are tiny test balloons. If you don't start popping them immediately, they'll take up the whole room. Address it the first time, not the fifth, or sometimes more. Issa Rose replied to soothe instead of holding space for his discomfort. When he spiraled 16 messages in a day, I still replied. Issa Rose thought I was sharing some type of lesson. Issa Rose thought she was setting clear boundaries, but what she was actually doing was rewarding panic with attention. Lucia knew, you're teaching his nervous system. Anxiety gets a response. Panic gets you back. Spiraling gets you to break your boundaries. Jypze felt guilty. He's hurting. No, he's manipulating you with his anxiety, whether he knows it or not, and you're allowing it, Lucia said. Issa Rose taught his nervous system, hey, this will get me a response. Issa Rose is not a crisis line. If someone spirals because I took space, that's their work, not mine. I can care about them and hold my boundary. Those things both coexist. Lucia's rule now. Someone else's emotional dysregulation is not my responsibility. You can care from a distance. You can hold space without re-engaging. Let them take their panic to God, a therapist, or a friend and loved one. It doesn't have to be you. All right, well, that's Issa Rose's side. I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be clear many times. But I also backpedaled. Far too many more. And that prolonged and inflamed the cycle. But here's what I want you to hear and remember. Owning our part does not mean we caused this. It means Issa Rose participated in a loop. And now I'm learning how to stop feeding them. Lucia, Jypze, and Issa Rose are learning to move on as one. And when we do, no one gets to override the boundaries anymore. Here's the toolkit. Part 4. Alright, now let's get practical. You've heard the story, you've learned the patterns, and you've seen Issa Rose's accountability. Now, what do you actually do when you're in this dynamic? Here are the tools, scripts, frameworks, boundaries you can use starting today. Lucia says, these are not just for him. These are for anyone who tries this with you. Learn them, use them. Make sure you enforce them. Tool 1, the one redirect rule. How it works. First violation, name it, plus redirect it clearly. That comment was sexual and personally intimate. I'm not interested in that. Let's keep this educational and spiritual based only. Second violation, name it and state the consequence. I've already set this boundary once. If it happens again, we are done here. Third violation, enforce. No explanation, exit. I've already stated this twice. This conversation is over. Block. Why it works? Because it removes the negotiation phase. You're not debating. You're not teaching. You are enforcing. And most importantly, you're training yourself and others that your no counts the first time, not the 5th or more. Lucia's addition. And when you enforce, do not feel guilty. Guilt is just the old pattern trying to pull you back in. Let your own inner Lucia shadow self handle the exit. That's what it's there for. Tool number 2, script for common scenarios. When someone spiritualizes your boundary, remember, reply, God also gave me discernment. My discernment says no. This is making me feel uncomfortable. When someone asks you to educate them on why you're upset, clearly define once and don't explain again. When someone says, I just care too much, care respects boundaries. Pressure does not. When you feel someone's love bombing you, reply, I appreciate the kind words, but this feels intense for where we are. We need to slow down or this will stop. When someone sends multiple check-ins in one day, I'll reach out when I'm ready. Please don't message me in the meantime. When someone uses pet names you did not consent to, don't call me that. Use my name. When someone copies your signature or style, that's mine. Please don't use it. When someone threatens a dramatic exit, no response. Let them go. Jypze's tip. You can say these scripts in your sweet voice if you want. Boundaries don't have to be harsh. They just have to be clear. Lucia's tip. If they argue with any of these scripts, that's your confirmation. A person who respects you does not debate your boundary. They adjust. Tool 3. The boundary hygiene checklist. Before you engage with someone new or re-engage with someone from your past, ask yourself, have I stated my boundaries clearly, out loud, or in writing? Am I enforcing them consistently, or am I backpedaling? Is this person respecting my no or making me repeat it? Do I feel energized or drained after our conversations? Am I the only one teaching here, or are they also pouring into me? Are they mirroring me or meeting me? If I need space right now, would they respect it or spiral? Do I feel free to be moody, messy, unavailable, or do I feel like I need to perform? If you answer no or I don't know to more than two of these, pause. It's time to reassess and enforce. This checklist saved me in the end. I wish I would have known it in the beginning. How to exit a loop without jading. What not to say. Let me explain why this hurts me. You don't understand. What you're doing is, if you would just listen, what to say. This dynamic is not working for me. I'm ending this conversation. I've set this boundary. It's not being respected, and we're done. I'm not available for this anymore. Then block. No further explanation. Why it works. Because you don't need to defend boundaries. You just need to enforce it. Lucia's mantra. Remember, jade equals justify, argue, defend, explain. And we don't do any of it. Just state, enforce, exit. Tool number 5. How to document and report if necessary. If someone is platform hopping, sending concerning messages, or violating your boundaries across multiple channels, screenshot everything with timestamps. Don't engage. Let them talk to themselves. Report on each platform. Harassment and unwanted contact. Block on all platforms simultaneously. Don't even give them the window to migrate. 5. If genuinely concerned about safety, encourage them to reach out to a trusted person in their life, connect with a therapist, or contact a crisis line. But do not try to re-engage the connection. Your own safety, emotional well-being, and mental health comes first. Always. Lucia's edition. Do not feel bad about reporting. You're not ruining their life. You're using a form of protection. Tool 6. The self-compassion script for when you blame yourself. If you're sitting here thinking, I should have known better. How did I let this happen? Why? Just stop. Stop now. Stop that now. Here's what Issa Rose wants you to say instead. I was doing the best I could with the awareness I had at the time. Maybe I was lonely. A part of me seeking connection, trying to be gracious, and I was also learning. And now I have more tools. Now I know the patterns. Now I'll do it differently. Say that out loud as many times as you need. Jypze's edition. And be gentle with yourself. You were just trying to be loving. That's not a flaw. That's your amazing heart. We just need to protect it better now. Lucia's edition. And if you catch yourself blaming yoururself again, ask, how would I support a best friend in this situation? Then say it in the mirror. All right, so that's the toolkit. Now, one last thing before we close. Part 5, the lesson. What I'd tell my past self. If Issa Rose could go back to July 27th, the day that it all started, here's what I'd tell myself. Issa, listen, I know you're excited. I know this feels like you finally found someone who gets it, someone who speaks the language and sees you, but here's what you need to know and remember. This person is not necessarily seeing you. They could be seeing their own reflection or what they want to see. And a mirror cannot pour into you. It can only send your energy back. So here's what Lucia, Jypze, and I need you to know. 1. Trust Lucia from the beginning. When she says, what the F, random? After the first hug comment, listen to her. She's not mean. She's protective. And protection is no longer optional. Your shadow self is not your enemy. It's your alarm system. And when it goes off, believe it. It's not a drill. 2. Enforce your boundaries the first time. Any mentions of hugging you again after you've already redirected once needs an exit from the conversation. You don't owe a second redirect. You don't owe an explanation. You owe yourself peace. Jypze will want to give him another chance. That's okay. But let Lucia hold the door. and keep it closed as necessary. 3. Stop being overly gracious at your own expense. You keep feeling like, I don't want to be mean and I don't want to unleash Lucia Lilith, but here's the truth. Boundaries are honest. And if someone calls you mean for having them, that's all you need to hear. Then there's a confirmation. You can be kind and firm. Your no does not need a dissertation. No scriptures, no YouTube videos, no teaching, just no. And if they ask why, it's okay to say because I said so. That's enough. Lucia will enforce it, if you let her. Notice the one-sidedness. You're pouring, they're receiving. You're teaching, they're studenting. You're channeling, they're siphoning. Consumption will drain you dry. Jypze, I know you love sharing. If it's only going one way, it's not sharing, it's giving yourself away. When you block someone, keep it that way. I know you're going to want to unblock them, especially if they keep being persistent. You're going to feel bad. You're going to think, was I too harsh? But here's what Lucia wants you to remember. It happened for a reason, and that reason is still valid. So grieve if you need to, but every time you unblock without new terms, you're just hitting replay. You are not responsible for anyone's nervous system. If someone spirals and sends 16 messages and blames their anxiety, that is not your emergency. You can care and hold your boundary and let them take their panic to God, therapist, or a trusted loved one. Your compassion is beautiful, but it's not your job to fix everyone who is broken. They need to do their own inner work without you becoming a crutch that's holding most of the weight. If it feels like limerence, it's not love. If it feels like a slot machine, it's not love. If the dynamic is good moment, boundary violation, apology, another good moment, another boundary violation, repeat cycle of abuse, that becomes intermittent reinforcement, which is conditioning and trauma bonding, and you don't have to wait for the jackpot. Walk away from the machine, or you'll end up bankrupt. Lucia will show you when to leave. Trust her. 9. Limerence is not love. What you're feeling, the obsessive thoughts, the crown chakra vibrations, the energetic high, that's not connection. That's limerence. Those are red flags. Even though it's intoxicating and feels addictive, they erode boundaries if you let it. You have to name it, feel it, and then release it. Honor the feeling without feeding it. You deserve to be met, not mirrored. The right person will challenge you in a healthy way, not just echo you. Pour into you, not just receive from you. Respect your no the first time. Not have to make you keep repeating it in different ways. Hold space for your humanity, not just your divinity. They will meet you, not mirror you. And in the meantime, you can meet yourself. Remember, you are your own twin, and you are whole as you are. So that is what Issa Rose would tell my past self. If you're listening to or reading this and thinking, oh my God, this is me, here's what we want to tell you. You're not broken. You're not dumb or stupid. You're not too sensitive or too much, and definitely not too difficult. You are discerning, and that discernment is trying to protect you. If something feels off, it is. If someone keeps testing your boundaries, they are. If your intuition is screaming, run, go, listen. Lucia wants you to know, your inner shadow protectress. Your inner protector is not your enemy. When used healthily, your shadow is your ally. Listen to it. You don't need more proof. You don't need to give another chance. You don't need to wait until it gets bad enough or explodes to justify leaving. You can because you want to, and you feel you need to, and that's reason enough. And listen, I know it's hard. We get lonely. We want connection. We get tired of doing this and feeling all alone at times. Here's what we've learned. If not done in productive spiritual solitude, loneliness can be painful, but consumption is excruciating. If you have to choose between being alone or being drained, pick yourself every time. Because the right people, the ones who are meant to walk with you, They won't make you choose. They'll meet you. They'll respect you. They will match your energy, not just mirror it. And they won't make you override your intuition to do it. So Jypze wants you to know you can still be playful, hopeful, and loving, and have boundaries. Yes, they can coexist. So here's my prayer for you and for me. May we trust our no the first time. May we stop being gracious at our own expense. May we remember that mirrors are not matches. May we honor our own Lucia, Jypze, and Issa Rose, and every part of the Trinity within. May we choose clarity over chaos. May we choose ourselves every single time. All right, that's it. That's the story. There's the lessons and the toolkit. From halo to horns, from I see you to feed me your energy, from love bomb to F this world, I'm out. Remember, truths and roses have thorns about them. If this resonated, let me know in the comments. If you have your own story, I'm holding space with and for you. Resources. My book, The Garden That Remembered the Stars. It's on Amazon. Link in description. My website, sproutfromdarkness.com. I'll also drop a boundary script PDF in the description, free download. And a pattern recognition checklist so you can spot this in real time. Before you go, one more thing. If you're in crisis or know someone that is, please reach out. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 988. Crisis text line is text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. And remember, RAINN for the sexual assault support. 1-800-656-HOPE. Hope. You're not alone. You are worthy of respect, space, and peace. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for doing the work. My energy returns to source. My wings fold back over my mission. The river moves on, and so do we. Remember, this is not tea. This is receipts and release. Jade bait declined. Mirroring does not equal mutuality. Energy returned to sender. Mascot, Lucia. Mood, nope.